For decades, we've been taught that Europe's earliest inhabitants were white, but recent research suggests a shockingly different story. In fact, the oldest British man ever found wasn't white. This discovery has significant implications for our understanding of the origins of the British people and the complex nature of our shared ancestry. In this video, I'm going to go to London and show you what the oldest British man ever discovered actually looked like. He's recently been recreated, skin, eyes, and all, in a fascinating exhibit in one of the coolest museums in the world. I was shocked to see what British people really looked like thousands of years ago. So buckle up and come check it out with me. If you're new here, welcome to my channel where I travel the world as a digital nomad and share with you the things that make my travels deeper, more interesting, and more fulfilling. This is the second episode of my epic new series called My European History Odyssey. I'm starting at the beginning and traveling throughout Europe to unlock the secrets of the past, discover who I am as a result, and what all of this means to the world. I want to go inside and see if I can figure out what my and our ancestors looked like, lived like, worked like before civilization. And I also want to go in and try to see a little bit about what they looked like and lived like before they were humans. I should say before they were Homo sapiens sapiens. Before I reveal the mind-blowing face, skin, and eyes of the oldest Brit ever found up close and personal, I want to show you the other top sites of this world-famous museum right here in London, because they're all pretty much equally fascinating to anyone interested in how and why the world is the way it is. First, I was awestruck by the animatronic T-Rex exhibit, which brings this legendary meat-eating predator dinosaur to life with its impressive movements and thunderous roars. A real Stegosaurus. This is such a great piece at this museum because it's something that an adult can enjoy as much as a child. I've literally seen 3 children come up to the edge and start jumping up and down. They're so excited to see a Stegosaurus. And this is not a replica. Only a couple parts of it are replica because it's almost the only complete skeleton of a Stegosaurus that has ever been recovered. It's from the United States, it's from Wyoming, but here it is in the Natural History Museum in London. So make sure not to miss what's called the Treasures Gallery. It's up on the 2nd floor. They call it the 1st floor. I made the mistake of thinking that I had already seen the Great Auk because there's a model of the Great Auk downstairs. But this is the actual taxidermy Great Auk. So this was a real one. I've always been fascinated by seeing actual extinct species. So same feathers, same beak, everything. The Barbary lion skull is over 700 years old. These lions are now extinct. They've been extinct since 1922 and they used to roam the coast of North Africa, but this one was found in an excavation in the Tower of London Zoo in 1937. I absolutely love this woolly rhinoceros. It was found suspended in oil, which ate away all of its fur and its horn, but the rest of it was just like this. They lived in this area until the end of the Ice Age, and then they became extinct. So this is how big it is compared to me. There's always going to be a lot of kids at a natural history museum, so you've got to get really lucky, especially in a huge city like London, if you want to get any shots without them. So I'm going to take my moment here. This is the most personal space I've had with this giant sequoia tree. So I just want to give you some perspective of how big it is compared to me. So this topaz is more than 9,000 carats. It almost looks fake to me, but when you realize that it's real, it's really breathtaking. I wanted to show you how big it is compared to me. This is Guy the gorilla. It was an actual gorilla in the London Zoo who was one of the favorite animals and well beloved by the city. Guy the gorilla died around the time I was born, and apparently it did have a temper, but it also says here that sometimes it would kind of grab birds and look at them and then let them go. So this is Guy the gorilla. And right here I'm standing next to a huge giant sloth that would have lived in South America. I can't get it all in the frame even. It's now extinct. This is not the actual bones of the giant sloth, but it was made from plaster casts of some of the bones. So it's standing out here in a very visible area. Everyone can see how big the giant sloth was that once roamed the Americas. South America at least.
A rock slab with imprints of waves from millions of years ago.
This is a really cool piece as well. I always recommend, by the way, staying in museums almost until they close, because all the kids are mostly gone. There's like 2 people in the best part of the museum right now with me, so it's really cool because some of the other parts were really crowded. Just one comment about this piece. I really like it. It's called the Furs or Furza Plat hand axe. It's a Neanderthal hand axe. And it's the largest hand axe ever found in Europe. This museum's really, really full of treasures, so I can imagine my ancestor just like chopping away with this stone axe. Look at that. Okay, so I'm standing right here next to an original copy of Darwin's Origin of the Species, which is actually in Dutch. Some tourists were informing me. I thought it was German just based on like how it looks. But I figured you'd have to go to a library or something to see something like that. A British library, but apparently right here in the Natural History Museum.
This is the Archaeopteryx. It's the most valuable fossil in the entire museum, and it's over 140 million years old. The reason it's so important is because when this fossil was discovered, they were able to confirm the link between dinosaurs and birds. So we're soon going to get to what the oldest British man looked like. But what about the oldest human? Have you heard of mitochondrial Eve? Well, basically the truth is that all of us alive today descend from a strong black woman from Africa. They call her our mitochondrial Eve. Let's do a quick review of human evolution and prehistory, so when you go to a natural history museum, you can understand what you're looking at, and so that you can follow along with us here.
Okay, so let me give you a little crash course on human prehistory, so we can start at the very beginning. First, boom, the Earth begins 4.5 billion years ago. But we're talking about humans, so let's fast forward. 5.5 to 6.5 million years ago are the first primates, with which we share a common ancestor. About 4 million years ago, the Australopithecines appear, such as these, standing on 2 legs, bipedal. So they live in the savannah, and the most famous skeleton that was ever found of them is called Lucy. She was found about 3.2 million years ago, and here is a good reconstruction. So talk about family history research. This goes a long way back. This is our great ancestor, Lucy. Lucy is an example of Australopithecus afarensis from 3.2 million years ago. Next, we're going to jump to the genus Homo. That's what we are, Homos.
This is Homo habilis. The Homo habilis appeared 2.8 million years ago. We're moving through this really fast. Let's see what's next. Now this is starting to look like it could be one of my cousins. We're jumping ahead again. 1.8 million years ago, a new form, Homo erectus. Now, I've actually never seen a model of a Homo erectus before. We're going to see actual skulls in a second, but this is a recreated model, and it's really amazing how close it looks to a modern day human, much more so than I thought. So, 1.8 million years ago, we basically looked like this. The thighs are the same as mine, but the ankles are a little thick. Now we're getting really, really close to modern humans. We've almost hit the jackpot. But here, a slight difference. These are the Neanderthals. The Neanderthals first appear on the scene more than 400,000 years ago, looking like this. We're not descended from the Neanderthals, but we share a common ancestor, and there was a time period where we lived and coexisted at the same time. Nowadays, they're finding out that some of us have Neanderthal DNA. Looks like a father and, I'm gonna say son? And over here, it looks like we actually have a full skeleton of a Neanderthal. It's up on about a foot-high pedestal, and it's about the same height as me, so you can tell they were a little bit shorter. This particular one lived in Europe about 50,000 years ago.
And finally, around 200,000 years ago, we arrived on the scene in Africa. Homo sapiens sapiens. By about 40,000 years ago, we had migrated from northern Africa and the Middle East into Europe.
And this is one of my Viking ancestors. His name is Lars. I'm just kidding. They were not in Europe yet. Humans started in Africa. This is an example of an early Homo sapiens, but it looks like the way he's dressed that this one particularly might not have been in Africa. Humans did start in Africa.
So once humans are on the scene, prehistory is divided up into different ages, basically depending on what types of tools they used. The first is the Stone Age that starts with the Paleolithic, and this is from the beginning of humans till about 10,000 BCE. At this time they lived in caves and simple huts. They ate things like mammoth, deer, bison, basically kind of roaming herds. And it ends with the last ice age, and with the extinction of our friends, the woolly mammoths. It's in this Paleolithic period that you see things like the Venus of Willendorf from 25,000 years ago that we talked about in our last video, and the Lascaux cave paintings in France from about 17,000 years ago that you're going to see in an upcoming video. Next is the Mesolithic, and lithic just means stone, so Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, it's all different versions of the Stone Age. Mesolithic is from about 10,000 to 8,000 BCE. They still lived nomadically, but they were starting to concentrate near rivers and water. They're using polished tools with points and attached antlers and starting to have a little bit of agriculture. The last part of the Stone Age is called the Neolithic, basically means new rock or new stone. And this is where you hear the term the Neolithic Revolution, because this is basically when agriculture started. Agriculture is huge. It's basically the beginning of world history, because now people are able to settle down in permanent places and have a surplus of food, which means there's people that are able to spend some time doing other things like organization or religious rituals or art. The Neolithic period is from 8,000 to about 3,000 BCE. Next is the Bronze Age. These time periods are getting shorter and shorter. This is from 3000 BCE to about 1300 BCE. It's called Bronze Age because they discovered how to make this copper and tin alloy. It allowed them to make greater tools, pots, and weapons. This is also when you start to see the organization of law and warfare in places like Egypt. The next age is the Iron Age, and you can pretty much figure out what that is. Humans figured out how to use iron, which allowed them to make much stronger tools and much stronger weapons. The Iron Age was from 1300 BCE to 900 BCE. you basically start to see mass production of steel tools. You're going to see rudimentary forts, palaces, temples, even some street paving and city planning. So now, from just this one video, you know all you need to know about the basics of human evolution and human prehistory, so you can fit that into the context of your future travels and enjoy, even in a more deeper way, all the cool places we're going to go, not only today, but in this series. You probably clicked on this video because you want to see what the oldest man whose skeleton was ever found in England actually looked like. I'm going to show you that now. Let's go back to the Natural History Museum in London. The best natural history museum in the entire world. It's a fantastic place, and you've already seen so many of the other top sites and exhibits in this museum. Now it's time to reveal our oldest ancestor, the Cheddar Man. Hidden away in the evolution section of this museum, overlooked by most people who come to London, is the actual skeleton of the oldest British man who they've ever found. He's called the Cheddar Man. Now, it has nothing to do with cheddar cheese. It's because they found him in a place called the Cheddar Gorge. This is the actual skeleton, not a replica, of the Cheddar Man. So he was found in England 10,000 years ago, young adult, probably between 19 and 23 years old. His pelvis actually was not fully fused yet. It was still developing. And right next to his actual skeleton is a painstakingly made recreation made by the top DNA scientists of what he actually would have looked like. It was most probable that this is what he looked like. Dark hair, dark brown skin, and blue eyes. Now, when you think of a British person, you might think of blue eyes, but you don't think of dark brown skin. Almost closer to what our ancestors from Africa would have looked like. Well, that's because a wave of immigrants came in from mainland Europe and pretty much pushed out the Cheddar Man and his family and that entire group of people. If you're a descendant from the original Britons, only 10% of your DNA is from people like this guy. The rest was the new wave of lighter skinned people who actually most of them had brown eyes at the time. Their skin was lighter because it had adapted in a different way to the amount of sun, which is actually less in this region. That adaptation allowed them to absorb vitamin D more quickly. The story of this Cheddar Man is a remarkable discovery. It challenges our understanding of human migration and the history of the British Isles, and therefore the history of all of Europe. Most of the people that were in Europe at the time of this Cheddar Man had this dark brown skin. For too long, our understanding of race and ethnicity has been based on superficial differences, like skin color, eye color, facial features. But the Cheddar Man story reminds us that our shared ancestry is much more complex and interconnected than we ever imagined. If you enjoyed this video, I can't wait to see you in the next one, where we go to one of the most fantastic prehistoric sites in the entire world. Happens to be right here in England. Could have actually been my own ancestors. Get ready for Stonehenge. Make sure to click like and subscribe if you haven't already, so you know when the next video is coming out. See you soon!